So I've been working with CNC, learning new things, getting better with it, and I figured time to tackle 3D carving. 3D carving is where you use a CNC to carve wood or metal or whatever. You can use a real small ball-nosed bit, and the goal is to create a 3D carving. It's a little more than what I've essentially been doing, which was called 2.5D, kind of cutting profiles out at various levels, of various thicknesses. Now, I had to pick a project, and I happen to have a really cute daughter. Say hello, daughter.
Hello.
And she needs a sign for her bedroom. I mean, she's 2.5 years old. 2.5-year-olds should have signs for their bedrooms, and signs for the bedrooms should have cool things that they like on it. So, I wanted to know if she liked dragons.
Do you like dragons?
Yep.
And what do dragons say?
Hello.
Now, with that resounding response, seemed like perhaps making a sign with a dragon on it, totally a thing to do. So we're going to pop up an ArtCAM. We're going to real quick, just using clip art, throw together a sign for her, come up with a cam, and we're going to make her a sign, and it's going to be awesome.
So what we're going to do here is create a new model, and one of the important things is to change your origin. After you change that, double check the rest of your settings. So we want a 14 by 7.25 inch piece. 7.25 is because this is machined down, or S4, which S4 1 by 8 ends up being 3/4 by 7.25. And then we're going to go ahead and we're doing this whole thing through the samples, right? So, or the clip art. So let's grab a base. We're going to throw it on the page, on the model, and we're just going to center it. And there it is, centered. Woohoo! Once we have it centered, one of the important things I found after double checking all of your settings is to always paste it as a layer. That way you can delete things independently from each other. But if you paste it and then you paste and you paste, then you can't really go backwards. One of the things I actually don't like about ArtCAM is that it doesn't really let you go back and change any of the settings of that. Once you've kind of created it, the only thing you can do is delete it and start over. So I probably made this sign like 5 times, just learning, stuff, because I'd make a mistake and I'd have to start all over. It was very annoying. Also, when I created it, I went ahead and turned on a setting to copy the vector, and we're going to use that to get the inside, and we'll see why we want the inside later. But first, just so you know, we're creating a vector of the inside by doing an offset. So super easy to do. It's going to be important later on. Let's go ahead and add the text. My daughter's wonderful name, Danica, except I can't type, Danica. All right, and we've already kind of played with these things. Like I said, it took me a couple of times to make this sign, so we already have the right font picked, and we're gonna bold it because it's a little thin, so we want to just give it a little meat. So now we have a little bit of meat. That's going to be awesome. Once we've done that, we're pretty much done there. Create turns that into a vector. Once it's a vector, like everything else, you can't edit it. You can't edit the text anymore. So we're going to go ahead and center it, and then we'll just use our keypad to move it down into place. And it's, it's not perfect. Maybe we wanted to go more like 2.5 inch characters, 2.25, so we'll just scale it. Use the transform feature. That's the arrow, the scale, and the rotate, and we can use that to make the vector larger. And again, we'll center it and we'll just slide it down into place. That would be really annoying. There's probably better ways to do alignment, but that's what I figured out with this. Once we have that, as I mentioned before, Danica likes dragons, so we're going to put a dragon on here. And they have a wonderful dragon in their clip art, so we'll just drag the dragon. And we'll scale it up, make it the size we like. And we'll just we'll center it, and then we'll use the keypad to move it into place. One of the things I realized is actually, if you notice over on the right side, there's actually X and Y. Actually, you can't see them right now, but there are X and Y, so you can actually be very precise about where you place things. Still not as good as being able to align things. But, just butts in with the dragon to make him the right size. And once we like his size and his location, then we will put him in place. So we like where he is. We're going to check some things. One of the things before we paste him in is we want to know how we're pasting. So right now it's merge high, so only the high parts of the dragon would show up. We want to do add, so it's going to lay the dragon on top of the current thing, which is the base. So it's going to lay it on top of the base. In full disclosure, we ended up doing the sign one more time in Maple, as I mentioned, and we tweaked that dragon a little bit. We gave it a little bit of an offset, but that's the only thing that's different between this time and when we recreated it the other time. We're bubbling the letters to give them a nice, cute, rounded shape. It's pretty awesome. Looks good. And once we're happy with that, we'll apply that change. Must have been double checking some things, making sure I was good with everything. And yeah, everything looks good. Phantom me, click the apply button. Oh, yeah. I'm trying to select things. This is a horrible way to select things. It does not work this way. Don't do this way. You want to go to 2D if you want to select things. And the 2D is crazy. Sorry. All right, so we are grabbing all the vectors, except we're in node mode, so we want to grab the vectors, not the nodes, and we don't want to grab the inside vector. So what we're about to do here, and this is why we wanted all those vectors. We want all the vectors because what we're going to do is we're going to place a texture inside there. So now that we've got it selected, we're going to go to Apply Texture, and we're going to select a vector. So it's going to apply the texture inside the main vector, but outside of any of the internal vectors. And there's a bunch of different textures that come with ArtCAM, from a hammered metal to a couple of scrapes to granite to fleur-de-lis. There's all kinds of different stuff here that you could, for various reasons, signs, art, whatever, apply whatever texture you think you like. In our case, we're going to apply hand carve 1. So we're going to pick that, and we're just going to hit apply. You can't see it right now where it's additive, so again, it's going to put it on top. And there's a nice carved effect. So now we have our sign, and we're pretty much done with that. But now we need to cut it. So here's where we're going to use the cam for ArtCAM, the cam and ArtCAM. So we want to carve it. First thing we want to do is rough it, because we don't want to spend all day doing little micro steps down with a really small carver. So there is an option with the 3D cut to here I was experimenting. I wanted to see what the automatic would do. Ended up not doing what I wanted, but while I'm going through this experiment that I don't like, and I'll explain why here in a second, we're going to pick the 1/4" end mill because we're just carving, we're just roughing. So it has a roughing feature, but the roughing it does is not as precise as roughing with the actual carve. So I ended up doing 2 carves, one with 1/4" end mill and one with the other one. And one of the settings that don't apply in this version of the cam, like I said, I ended up doing this again before I did my cuts, and didn't record it. There's an offset setting. It's called allowance in this screen. There's an allowance, and so if you're roughing, set the allowance, and the allowance is going to keep the bit that many, hundredths of an inch or whatever above the board. So so what just happened, just to kind of bounce back, what just happened was we tried to use automatic. Automatic did find the 3D object. It was awesome, but it found the edges, and we don't want to cut the edges. So what it actually did is it basically found the edges and created a vector outside. So we just deleted that vector. It wasn't useful. We're going to redo this, and we can already see now it's only carving the top of the surface, not carving the sides. We don't want to carve the sides. So we're going to name this roughing, and this is a 1/4" end mill, and right now I think it's at a tenth of an inch pass. We're going to change that before we end up finishing to a 1/4" pass, 1/8 of an inch pass. Now we're going to do a finishing cut, and so this is going to be a 1 millimeter tapered bit, so it's very precise. We end up, I think the step over is something ridiculously small. It's 7/100ths of an inch. I think it's smaller than that, 7/1000ths of an inch, I think. So very, very, very tight. And this is a mistake. I accidentally clicked to generate the toolpath before I set the vector, so it generated a toolpath over the whole thing, and that was not what we wanted. So we're going to go back and pick a vector. We actually already have the vector picked, so it's just easy to recalculate that. And that's going to fix super fast. No biggie there. Once we have the vector, we like it. So now we have our high resolution toolpath and our low resolution toolpath for the 3D carving. So we'll get a lot of material out of the way very, very fast because we're cutting that 1/4 inch mill is at like a 400 inches a minute. So we can clear material. And then we're going to run 100 or 200 inches a minute to actually do the high resolution 3D cutting to make the sign pretty. Because the 1/4 inch sign is not pretty. Trust me. Don't just use a 1/4 inch mill. You won't like it. Now the stock I'm using is 3/4 of an inch deep, so we have to tell ArtCAM that our stock is bigger than our part, and so we've done that. And as you can see, it's put the rest of the material on the bottom. That's what we want. We need that to go ahead and do our profiling because ArtCAM won't profile to nothing. It'll only profile as deep as the actual material. So you have to tell it the material thickness. So once we've done that, we want to do a profile, and we got to pick our bit. And again, we're using the same the edge vector. We've already picked that vector. We're going to use a 1/4 inch mill again. However, we're not going to go 400 because we're cutting in. We're going to go 150. In full disclosure, what I'm about to do is a bad idea. The step down here, 0.25. No. Bad idea. Don't do that. But I did it, and you'll see how interesting that turned out. So we just slowed everything down, and we're going to also add tabs. 2 settings for the tabs. There's actually 3, but 2 that are important. How wide is your tab, and how tall is your tab? I'm doing 1/4 inch tabs, if I can type. So there's our 1/4 inch tabs. And when you're done, just click Add, and it'll generate the tabs. So you can kind of see them in the drawing. There are little spots where it's kind of signified where the tabs are going to apply. And we'll go ahead and generate that toolpath. And you can see the toolpath. I ended up actually, when I said I had to come back and do some stuff again, I ended up doing this in 1/8 inch passes, not the smaller passes. So now we're just going to check the toolpath and make sure that it does exactly what we want. So we're going to run through it, and we're just going to watch it and say, yay, it works, or no, it doesn't, and we don't have to watch it, we can speed through it, so we did. And so like I said, you wouldn't want that to be your finished piece. That's no good. And you definitely want to, when you do this, you definitely want to use that allowance setting to make sure that roughing pass is not on top of your finished material, because otherwise you could, in certain circumstances, violate your model with the 1/4 inch bit, where if you go ahead and do that 200ths of an inch or 500ths of an inch, whatever you're comfortable with, if you go ahead and do that, then you're not going to violate the chances of your 1/4 inch bit violating the models very small, so you're going to get the best result possible. Another thing with full disclosure, another thing we tweaked is we ended up doing all of this. Not long ways, but wide ways, and that's because the grain of the wood. Some people suggested, hey, you should cut against the grain. So the grain of the wood is actually along the short axis. So we end up changing 90 degrees all the cuts. Obviously not the profile cuts. Once we're happy with it, we go ahead and I'm tweaking some of my speeds here. This would be the in-mill cut. Like I said, I want to change it to 1.25. Just make it a little wider, a little faster. There's no reason for it to be 0.1. Saves a few passes, not a whole lot, but every moment counts. I'm just going through and double checking all my feeds and speeds before I go ahead and commit this. We ended up changing this to 100 from 200 before we actually finally cut it. 200 is crazy fast for that little bit, and it was chattering pretty bad, so we just dropped it down. That bit is so small that 1 millimeter ball nose is just a tiny bit. In the profiling, at the end of the day, we end up changing that to 0.25 depth of cut, or 0.125 depth of cut. We probably could have left it at 0.25 once. Well, you'll watch. It's amazing. And then we just made sure that the cutouts are there, the tabs are there. I didn't want to accidentally find out the hard way that I thought I had tabs, but I didn't. So I was just confirming the tab presence. Once I was happy with everything, I'm just double checking my settings again, I guess. Yeah, so just double checking my settings. So once I'm happy with everything, here in a sec, I'm going to go ahead and export, which is to save. So let's set the pre-comp processor to Mach 3/4 inches and tap. That fits. That fits my machine just fine. So we're exporting everything, and a real cool thing is to save the toolpath details. So that's not only going to save every toolpath separately, but it's actually going to put the titles on them. It's really nice. It makes it much easier to work with as files. When you go to G-code, you know exactly. It's not just, you know, roughing 1. It's like roughing 1, and here's the bit you're going to use. It's really actually quite nice. So now we are we're going to go ahead and save our changes, and we are ready to go to the machine. So let's save our file and head up to the CNC and make some chips.
So, took us 2 tries. Oops, hold downs are important. Tape doesn't always work. But the second sign came out amazing, looks great. We're standing it up, we're gonna stick it on her door. It will be her sign for a real long time. For those that are following along, first sign was made in red oak, and there were some things I didn't quite like on it, aside from the fact it went flying off of the table. So the second sign was actually made in soft maple, which carved beautifully, just, I mean, super, super accurate. In fact, it was almost more accurate than I would have liked. Maybe I should have used a smaller bit, or it took more work sanding it afterwards to get it ready for stain than I guess I thought, but then again, I've never done this, so maybe that's normal. Result is, she's got an awesome sign. It's going to go on her door. And thank you for watching. Please subscribe. If you have comments or questions, ask them below. And thanks for your time.